Oh boy, we should have done a manual start. I guess we already went live. Well, welcome everybody to the Easter Sunday episode of the Liberty Block Live. You guys got to get a live look in at some of the behind the scenes for about 30 seconds there, which I wish we could have taken care of before, but such is the way things have been going. Welcome to the world of coronavirus, where today we finally have another topic, and tonight we are doing things a tiny bit differently. Tonight, instead of having our waters, tonight Dan and I are having a salute to Rona. Cheers, everybody.
And we wanted to point out that we're not making fun of it or making light of any of the deaths or anything that have occurred. We brought up the topic of the Corona factory actually being shut down last week, so it's sort of a throwback to that, and hey, throw a little business to.
And a salute to Liberty, because it seems to me like a colossal injustice to shut down a factory in Mexico because of something that has nothing to do with any of that. So
they were deemed non-essential by the Mexican government.
Non-essential, and well, you know what? I got to get my fluids in. Dan's got to get his fluids in. So
with lime.
Yep, with lime. Delicious. All right, so let's dive right into our topics for today, which are starting off with, I think, what is the biggest news of the week by far, which is that Bernie has announced finally that he's going to suspend his campaign. And we've got news of that from, well, you know what, actually, before we get into the news of the day, the big news from the Liberty Block is that we have finally completed our migration to our new site. It's still thelibertyblock.com, as you can see in the bottom right corner of your screen right now. But the new site looks really clean, really impressed with what we were able to do. And we're going to go right to the new site with this first article, which is that Bernie Sanders has dropped out and Joe Biden is now the presumptive candidate from the DNC. I'll just go ahead and read through some of this article for you, everybody, so we can follow along, because we got this, I think, in one quick. Yeah, I think we can do this in one quick post here. Let me get that brought up for everybody here. Dan, if you can share that link with everybody in the Facebook stream. I don't know if you have that ability right now. Breaking: Bernie Sanders drops out. Biden stands alone as Dem nominee. On Wednesday afternoon, Bernie Sanders went live on YouTube with an announcement telling supporters that he is dropping out of the Democratic primary for president. During his speech, the socialist senator from Vermont reflects on the true success of his campaign, which was bringing socialist ideas into the mainstream. Bernie was the last opponent of Joe Biden, and his campaign ending means that Joe Biden will be the nominee to face Trump in November, just as we predicted over a year ago. And we've actually included the video on our website. I've removed the video from this actual text, just so you guys can actually follow along with me, which I think actually should be this text still. There we go. So I'm not going to read the entire article, but you guys can follow along with us. Like I said, on Wednesday afternoon, Bernie Sanders went live on YouTube with an announcement telling his supporters that he's dropping out of the Democratic primary for president. During his speech, the socialist senator from Vermont reflects on the true success of his campaign, which was bringing socialist ideas into the mainstream. Bernie was the last opponent of Joe Biden. And his campaign ending means that Joe Biden will be the nominee to face Trump in November, just as we predicted over a year ago. And yes, we did actually predict that over a year ago. And we also predicted in that article, which is linked in this article in yellow, that he would nominate a woman as his vice president. And this is in January of 2019, so that was actually way, way, way ahead of him even announcing that he was going to nominate a woman as his vice president if he was to get the nomination
And he has promised that it will only be a woman who is chosen.
Right. And we talked about this, I think it was, 2 episodes ago, about how he's going to be nominating a woman as his vice
perhaps
president.
2 episodes. I think it was 2
episodes
the one
ago.
where I dropped off and could not get back on. Last week was intermittent. Hopefully this week's stream will be a little more consistent. We're trying to get those bugs worked out, but
and we've got the video in the link. I'm not going to read the whole article, but if you want to follow along at home with the article, I'll keep that posted as we discuss this. So the one thing that I don't think that we necessarily got right with our article here is that Joe Biden is, and the most honest way to put it is the presumptive nominee, because there could well be a coup at the convention. And we actually talked about, Dan and I actually talked about this on Friday when we were prepping for the show. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if it's the right choice for them. I think they've kind of stuck themselves between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, I think I don't. Yeah, rock and a hard place for sure. I don't see how they get out of it. The guy is losing his clarity day by day. It seems.
Yeah.
And how do you put somebody up who possibly by the time the election rolls around will have full blown dementia?
Yeah, and this is not a diagnosis from us at all. This is not a medical diagnosis. This is us just saying the reality of what we're looking at here, which is
when you look at his posts and the hiding out in the bunker and the stuff that he was talking about on the in the bunker,
and the fact that he can't complete a sentence. Like, and again, this is not us just being MAGA fanboys, dumping on Biden. The reality is he's 78 years old. And, Bernie Sanders is older than that and isn't, I mean, he's wrong and he's crazy, but he's not senile,
Exactly.
And it's not us saying he's too old to be president. It's us saying, even if he was 54 years old, if this was what we were looking at, then what happens in 2024 when he's going to be if he wins, what happens in 2024 when he's the incumbent?
And he's going to be what, 82, we figured he'll be in?
I think he's, what did we determine?
Did we figure it? Did we? I think we pegged it at inauguration. We figured
inauguration. Yeah, at inauguration he's going to be 78. Trump's not far behind that, and Bernie's ahead of that. But in both cases, you got somebody who you have candidates that aren't showing signs of senility.
Right.
Like, and maybe it's not dementia. Maybe he does just have a speech impediment or something, and is just eats his
figure
words.
After 50 years, though, that he would have mastered that. The guy's been in office 50 years, various offices from, representative on up to senator and vice president.
And I mean, the thing is that we talked about this on Friday too, like, you got to assume that the DNC has more information than we do, right?
Yes.
And that's not us being conspiratorial. That's us saying, like, there's no way that they don't have access to his medical records. And I'm sure they know if this is some sort of early onset. It's not even early onset. He's 77 years old. It's not early onset. But if it is some sort of dementia situation, I think they would know that. And I think they would realize that, this is going to look really bad if, like, 6 months into his presidency, or even, between winning the election and inauguration, if he so wins in November, if they have to replace him, that's going to, I mean, you got to assume that's going to be a serious long-term hit to their party.
Well, we were theorizing on this, is there even a legal means to replace a nominated candidate? You can't, I don't know that you can just say, okay, the vice presidential candidate gets to run now. Because there's no succession on a candidate. There's a line of succession on the actual president.
Right, and you mentioned on Friday, and I think this is actually really insightful, that, like, what happens in October if the DNC is like, oh my God, he's not even speaking English anymore. If his speech has just become right, if he becomes like a full-on vegetable by October, they're gonna have to run
which
a
we don't
campaign.
wish for.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
We never wish ill health upon our political opponents. Come on, right?
No. We're not
adults.
Right.
Yeah, we're adults, not Democrats.
We do know that they wish ill health.
Yes.
But we don't.
Yeah, and
he's just an older guy. You have to feel a little bad for him if this is what's going on. Yeah,
and you have to imagine too that when it comes to, we'll get into the vice president situation, but, like, legally, I don't even know what you do if he slips into senility between the election and the inauguration. Like, what do you do then? Like,
well,
what's the process?
This just occurred to me. Regardless of that, just from I don't know if you want to call it optics point of view or whatever. So you've already gone through the debates probably at that point. So now you run somebody who hasn't even debated. Is that even fair to the electorate to not know what this person's position is? I almost think you have to just if it gets that point, I think they almost just have to fold the tent, pull all of the ad money, and save it for next time.
Yeah, and you're basically telling your voters to write in somebody.
Yeah.
If it's in October, I'm talking about if he wins the election, and then this just completely falls out from underneath them, because this sort of stuff, like, this happened to one of my grandparents. This has happened to people that I've been friends with, where, you know, the brain just all of a sudden just goes from perfectly coherent to worthless in a matter of 6 to 8 weeks, right? So this could snowball and just blow up, even so much as between, you know, in November and January. And if that happens, I don't even know what the legal process is for who gets inaugurated, who gets sworn in January if the winner is Biden, and Biden just slips completely off. You know, it just goes complete vegetable between them, right?
Good question.
Yeah, and of course, the other thing that Dems have to be knowing is that, like, this is what's happening in 2020, what's going to happen in 2024, and the last time that there was a lame duck president was 1932, when Hoover was definitely not going to win, because he was his approval rating was something like 0, something like 3 or 4. It was single digit percentages, something that we've never seen with a president. He was definitely going to lose, and the Republican Party had the really tough decision of, well, he's the incumbent, but do we run him? And if we don't, then we know what's going to happen. And they did, and he lost in a landslide, and we knew what happened. Four straight elections of Democratic landslides from FDR. So, you know, they've kind of put themselves between a rock and a hard place, because the other option here is that they have a coup at the convention, which you and I both don't.
Was thinking.
I mean, what do you think? I have no way to predict if that's going to happen. I don't. It's
one of those. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other thing. It's like, either way, they lose, in my opinion. Not necessarily lose the election, but I think it's a losing situation. That's, you know, which one do you? It's a whole Sophie's choice thing. Which one do you go with? They're all hard choices,
right? Because if you alienate your voter base by by nominating the guy who didn't win the popular vote, right? Yeah. Like, they keep saying, "Oh, well, we may not have won the nomination, but we won the popular vote. But we won the debate." And I'm like, no, you didn't. You didn't, as a reflection of the fact that people aren't voting for Bernie. Right? Like, I think we talked about this in our first show, that if you look at, like, 18 to 24, it's like 90% Bernie, but he wins no other age demographic, and 18 to 24 doesn't vote. Yeah. So, like, in a general, like, they're not going to vote. And I mean, if the nominee is Bernie instead of Biden, you've just alienated half your voter base. In fact, more than half your voter base.
Well, what happens? I don't know their rules enough, but what happens if you take his current delegates and then add those super delegates?
I thought they got rid of the super delegate. I thought they got rid of the super delegates.
I thought it was still in play. I thought it was still something. I thought
they got rid of him because of what happened to Bernie last time around. I don't know. We'd have to look into that.
Maybe somebody can chime in on the feed and let us know. Do a quick search for us.
Yeah. If somebody could look into that, I don't see any.
But also, the other thing we wanted to talk about was, if there's a coup at the convention, what about these sexual charges?
Yeah,
Creepy Joe.
Yeah,
not just the dementia, but the whole Creepy Joe, and now there's actual charges of pretty serious sexual allegation against him from back in the 90s. Sometime it was one of his senatorial campaigns.
Yeah, I actually should have done more research on that for myself here, but
which we won't get into that too much.
We don't get into.
We know he's creepy. We know he likes.
There isn't much information on it. Yeah. There's barely allegations at this point, but, you know, of course, we know what's going to happen, and that's the media's going to cover for him, and you're never going to hear from it again. I mean, even if he's not the nominee, they're going to cover for him because it's politically convenient to cover for him, and it's not going to be anything like anything that's been brought. Ben Shapiro said it best. I wish the media would treat every president the way they treated George W. Bush, which is incredible scrutiny, but only honest scrutiny. And not like Barack Obama, which is to just give him a free pass, because that's what they're going to do with Biden. You know,
Oh, yeah.
they're going to give him a pass.
Well,
And
especially if the dementia kicks in, they're going to have to cover it up
yeah, and you know the DN. So when it
because
comes
that's
to
who they made their bets on.
yeah, so you and I both kind of agree that if they have a coup, then they're screwed. And the other thing is that like when it comes to his vice president, they can't. He's not going to nominate Bernie. Like he said he was going to
No,
nominate.
he's already committed.
Yeah, he's already committed to
How
nominating
many
a woman.
women are you going to upset because he's
Yep.
already said absolutely it will be a woman,
Yeah.
which to me is irresponsible because that means you're not picking the best person. You're picking them based on a box that they can check.
Right. Well, the best person that also meets this condition, which is an arbitrary condition, right? And you know,
Right.
the other thing that we've talked about too is like not only that, there's no way that you that. First things first, you're right. You're the suburban moms, which are actually swing voters, you've just lost them, right? The other thing is if you nominate Bernie, you've lost Florida, because the swing votes in Florida are your second and third generation Cubans, and the way that he's
they'll forgive.
No, they won't. No, they won't. The second and third generation Cubans are not. No, I mean they've held rallies in the streets, like in March. In protest of Bernie
He probably
Sanders.
wouldn't even be able to campaign down there in some neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Without causing a riot.
Yeah. So you know that, and the way that the campaign has gone between Biden and Sanders, there's just it's you're mixing dynamite with fire, right? Like you can't do that. And on top of that, of course, you know, I don't honestly think Biden is a socialist at heart. I think he's right now pushing socialist agenda out of political convenience. Like that's what's popular.
He's a swamp creature.
Yeah. Yeah. And all right. So
he's existed for 50 years in the swamp because he knows how to live in the swamp.
Yeah. Now I've said that if they wind up keeping him and there's no coup, then first things first, if there is a coup, what they should do is go completely off the map. None of the candidates, not even Yang, not Bennett. So the lights are flickering here. I just want to let people know that we are having yet again some extremely severe weather around here. I'm just outside the tornado zone here in Cookeville, Tennessee. But you know, if the power goes out, folks, I'll have about 30 seconds worth of battery backup to sign off. I apologize in advance. I don't know what to tell people. That's just that's what happens when you live in in an area that's at risk for tornadoes. Again, but I've said they should go completely off the map, and I think that that's what they should do with the VP nominee, because he said woman. They need to hang on to suburban moms. That's where they should go as a woman, and I think they should go either completely off the map, or if they're going to go somebody who's got some name recognition, it's got to be Klobuchar. Klobuchar is in a swing state in Minnesota. It is technically still a swing state. You nominate Klobuchar, you win Minnesota. But the person that I've actually suggested is the governor from the what was her name? This is how obscure she is. I don't even know. Gretchen Whitmer. Who is the governor of Michigan, who nobody's heard of, so she hasn't pissed anyone off. Basically, is why I'm saying don't give it an unheard of. She's polling at 60%, 60% approval, 22% disapproval in Michigan right now, which is for Michigan that's as good as you're going to get. So you're probably going to win Michigan if you nominate her. And you might win some other swing states. You're probably not going to win Ohio after Biden's comments at the Ford plant.
Was an auto worker.
Oh yeah. But Gretchen Whitmer actually did Gretchen Whitmer did the rebuttal speech to Trump's State of the Union this past year. So she has some experience in the political forum at the national level. And she's a governor who is very popular in her state. I've said it's not necessarily her, but that's something. That's what you're looking for if you're a Democrat.
Yeah.
Her or somebody like Klobuchar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
do we want to give a quick update on Corona here on the United States stats?
Yeah, let's just give some stats. Let me bring that up for everybody. So we've only got two charts from the stats that we want to focus on today. I don't know, Dan, if you
You're
want
going
to
to
take
drop
that
them
over.
in right now.
Yeah, I got daily new cases. You want to talk about
Yeah,
that?
so what we're looking at here is that's another reason why we're having the corona. We're not again celebrating deaths at all. What we are celebrating is the factory, of course, but it appears that the plateau has finally occurred and it is actually beginning to decline slightly. We've been in a plateau since April 4th, it appears.
With cases.
Some days down. Yes, this is daily new cases. Some days down, but it appears that was the highest day, and it has not gone above that number since then. And actually, today it has dropped from yesterday. And then I don't have an exact number. I don't think. Actually, we do. Daily cases 30,003 as of yesterday, and daily deaths. Again, we've also gone past the plateau, and as of right now, it appears to be declining. Let's hope it continues at that rate. Our total deaths for the entire epidemic is currently, as of today, this afternoon, 21,993. So let's be confident that, or hopeful that it won't go much above that. Let's hope it stays under about 30.
Yeah, I mean, bold prediction. I'm going to make a bold prediction. By July 1st, we'll be under 31, and by January 1st, we'll be under 40. So that's my bold prediction, everybody. You can go ahead and lock that that in. But yeah, I've got the daily
When
deaths.
do the padlocks come off the door?
July 1st. So July 1st, 31,000. January 1st, 40,000. Mm-hmm. Do you want to get in on this?
As far as what?
July 1st, total deaths?
Just in time for 4th of July.
Yeah.
Are we betting?
Not betting anything, but make a bold prediction. No. So yeah, I've got the daily new deaths.
I don't want to bet because.
Yeah. I know it's morbid, but
you're putting them at 31 total, topping out at 31 total on January.
Under 31 by July 1, under 40 by January 1. Just because they're kind of like halfway points.
I'll do the Price is Right thing. I'll do 30,000 on July 1. 39.5 on January 1.
All right. So you think it's going to be?
I got to go lower. I don't want to see morbid that I'm predicting higher.
Yeah, and I'm not predicting an actual number.
It looks like we're past that hump. Once we're past that hump, hopefully it drops as quickly as it went up.
Yeah. So happy Easter, everyone. We are in our peak.
Yep.
Just as basically everybody predicted, it would happen around the second week of April, and it seems we're actually kind of just barely ahead of schedule in that respect. Now, the other thing that I wanted to bring up about the statistics is what we actually have going on here. So what I've got for you right now for everybody is a breakdown of the state-by-state statistics. And the statistic I really want to focus on, because I've got this in order. Do I have this in order of deaths per million?
Is this your correlation versus causation?
No, I have this. If you actually sort by deaths per 1 million, so this is the chart I brought up for you. We're still in the statistics. Yeah. Okay. So if you actually sort these by deaths per million, there's a handful of states that are way, way, way out ahead of everything. And as we talked about, your common flu has a floor. So there's a range of mortality rates.
Right.
Excuse me. There's a range of expected deaths per million, and the floor is 0.04%. 0.04% would be 400 deaths per million. New York is the only state so far to top that, and then it's a giant step down to New Jersey, its neighboring state, at number 2, and then let me get this sorted so I can follow along easier. And then the next states are New Jersey, Louisiana, Connecticut, Michigan, and Massachusetts. For states that are above 100 deaths per 1 million. It looks like Massachusetts has updated to 111 deaths per million. I think on my chart that I've got that I've got here for everybody, it shows 100. And if we scroll through these charts, you can kind of see that as you go down the line, it gets really, really, really low quick. And the graphic I created that I want everybody to see is I basically just took the United States and highlighted in red the states where the deaths per million are over 100. So that's where your predictive mortality, so not case fatality, but your predictive mortality is more than 1/100th of a percent. And you can see here what's going on is you have Michigan as an outlier. You have Louisiana, which had Mardi Gras in February, right?
Yes.
And then you have basically New York, because it's New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts. So I think we said in the last show that the origin seems to be tourism. People were saying early on that this originated in the United States from Wuhan tourists visiting New York City, which is to this day the world leader in international tourism. And if you're Chinese, it's even in China, it's skewed even more towards New York City than any other city compared to the rest of the world. And I actually wanted to extend that out. If you look at
in terms of where they visit, you mean?
Yeah, and then if you extend that to if you lower that threshold from 100 deaths per million to 50 deaths per million, you add in these pink states, which are Washington, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Rhode Island, and DC. And again, what it looks like is this country doesn't have a coronavirus problem. It looks like New York City has a coronavirus problem. And if we isolate that one part of the population, everything west of the Mississippi, not called New Orleans because of Mardi Gras, should be good to go.
Well, and this came up in one of the groups that I participate in here. There were some people, and everyone has a right to believe what they want to believe. They were on there, in my opinion, doing scare tactic and fear mongering and the social distance shaming that's become so popular now. So I went in and I'm in Maricopa County, Arizona. I went in and found our death rate here, also found our population. Our death rate is 0.000008. So that 8 is in the millionth spot in terms of our population in this county. There has not been a single death as of a couple days ago when I posted this. Single death under age 45. 35 deaths total, 15 of which were attributed to long-term care facilities. So that leaves 20 deaths total in a county of over 3 million people. And again, not making light at all of those 20 deaths or 35 deaths. But the point is, people are, we've talked about this before. We've shut down trillions of dollars. We've shrunk our economy by trillions of dollars over, like you said, other than a New York and New Orleans issue. It's been devastating. I mean, we've had this overreaction.
Yeah, and it's not us being callous about death, right?
No.
It's for every decision you make, there's a trade-off, and right, if your idea is to just institute communism, well, we all know what happens when you institute communism. People die, right? So at some point, yes, food costs money. We have to buy food, right? At some point, when you say to the hospitals, you're not allowed to, reserve X amount of your labor for this thing that they're not really having to deal with, right? I mean,
a lot of them, they're sending people home because they don't have any work for them,
right?
Because they canceled all the elective surgeries, which we're seeing stories now of hospitals that are starting to run into the red and even shut down because they're out of revenue. They earn their revenue from the elective surgeries. A bulk of their revenue.
Yeah, and who is that going to hurt the most? Of course, the people that can't afford to get on a plane and go to somewhere where there might actually be a hospital. So, this is a trade-off that's going to hurt the middle and lower class more than anyone, because it's, those that have the capital to weather the storm have the capital to weather the storm, and those that live paycheck to paycheck don't. So, if you're
rich enough to be able to charter a private plane, you go wherever you want and get your treatment. Yeah,
especially if you're somebody who's, chartering those planes and complaining about how much CO2 we have in the air. So that's really all we wanted to have as far as a conversation about the statistics on this matter. And we are honestly, like, I don't know about you, Dan, but I'm really sick and tired of talking about coronavirus. This is what, our 4th episode in a row where that's basically all we've talked about.
Yeah, well, like we said, we've hit a plateau, and hopefully we're just going to see nothing but a cliff from this point. So yeah, we can probably start to put that one to bed.
Yeah,
and that's the best.
Yeah, and that's not us saying that, like, oh, well, look, it wasn't that big a deal. We should have never done this in the first place. That's us saying, listen, your initial prediction, your initial best case scenario that you were cramming down our throats was millions of people dead, and that accounted for all of the measures that we've instituted. And that number, which is supposed to have accounted for all the measures we've instituted, in the best case scenario, went from 2.2 million to 500,000 to 100 to 240,000 to 60,000, and now was it Friday? Fauci said that it may even that 60,000 number is looking like an overestimate. And this is what we were saying from the beginning, that, like, this isn't the way to treat this. This looks like the common flu. Let's treat it like the common flu. And that's why we were saying, okay, well, what are we doing here? Because if the number winds up being 20,000, right, and you initially projected that it was going to be, in a best case scenario, hundreds of thousands, that means that something was wrong with the models in the first place, which is what we were complaining about. And to that effect, we can then move on to the next topic, which is, that when it comes to the classification of COVID death, I think we just lost Dan, who'll have to just sign in again real soon here. But so this is one of the things that we were complaining about, was the way that this was being treated statistically. So this is from the New York Post, of all places. This is not a right-wing media outlet. Feds classifying all coronavirus patient deaths of COVID-19 as COVID-19. Feds classifying all coronavirus patient deaths as COVID-19 deaths, regardless of cause, which means that if this is the case, they are way overestimating not only the case fatality rate, but the predictive matrices too. So I'm not going to read the whole article here, but let's see if we can bring Dan back in. Dan, do we still have you here? No, I guess not. All right. Well, we tried with Dan. He'll be back soon, I'm sure. But yeah, so I'm not going to read the whole article because it's really not important to go through the whole thing, because the first paragraph or two basically sums it up. The federal government is classifying the deaths of patients infected with the coronavirus as COVID-19 deaths, regardless of any underlying health issues that could have contributed to the loss of someone's life. Dr. Deborah Birx, the response coordinator for the White House Coronavirus Task Force, said the federal government is continuing to count the suspected COVID-19 deaths, despite other nations doing the opposite. Quote, there are other countries that, excuse me, I'm just going to go ahead and remove Dan's image here from the broadcast, so it's not distracting us from this whole conversation. Quote, there are other countries that if you had a pre-existing condition, and let's say the virus caused you to go to the ICU, intensive care unit, and then have a heart attack or kidney problem, she said during a Tuesday news briefing at the White House. Quote, some countries are recording that as a heart issue or kidney issue and not a COVID-19 death. The intent is if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that. And that's actually continued in this image right here. So I'll keep the article posted, so if you guys want to read it, you can follow along from home. But the idea here is that if somebody dies of a heart attack and in postmortem, it turns out that they happen to have coronavirus, then we're chalking that up to a coronavirus death. So Dan announced the deaths of 20-something thousand deaths. So it could actually be substantially less than that if it was something where the person had a heart attack and, after the person died, they determined, oh, they also had coronavirus, right? So there's talk here about how the way this is going to be applied. And it sounds like Dan's actually back. Dan, are we back? Yeah, let me see if I can bring you back in to the stream here. All right, there we go. Dan's back. All right, Dan, we're on to our article that is admitting what we were suspicious of, that murder victims who happen to have found out during the autopsy, oh, they also happen to have COVID-19 and never exhibited any symptoms.
Versus causation?
Yeah. Yeah, this is. I mean, we're no longer. So we all know that correlation is not indicative of causation, but sometimes you can use correlation to predict things because if it's a correlation is nearly 1-to-1, then yeah, then you could say, all right, well, this is predictive of this thing. It's not necessarily causing the thing, but you can say, you know, that if you're 6'5" and you're in great shape, that's far better. That's far more predictive of being a good basketball player than 5'6" and completely out of shape.
Right.
So in this case, there's not even a correlative link. It's, oh, they happen to have it, right? It's not even like, well, then there needs to be some sort of relationship going the other way. And we're not even seeing that. It's just, okay, so they had a heart attack and died. And you know, I think we hinted at that at an article that we're going to be publishing shortly, I'm hoping, that Laser wrote about how heart attacks are actually treated by EMTs versus in the hospital with this coronavirus outbreak. But yeah, I mean, the number you read though, was it 20-something thousand? I forget what number you read.
20. I think we're at 29. 21 993.
21,993. Yeah. So that number may be way inflated.
Yeah, if there's been doctors putting corona on the death certificate, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is what we were talking about. Like, that number may even be lower. And this is again, this is not us being callous with death. This is us saying, listen, we have a statistical issue that we told you was going to be a problem months ago.
Right.
Right. And if
we like facts.
Yes.
Let's just accept things as they are. Let the facts, if the facts were it's 100,000, then we admit it's 100,000.
Right. But
if you don't operate from facts, how do you operate at all? You can't make any decision unless you're using facts. Feelings, you can't make decisions on feelings or how you would like it to be.
And I mean, the philosophical logic behind all of this about what you should be doing is, if you don't know what you should be doing, then what you should be doing is the thing you were doing before, the thing that was working just fine. And I'm saying not working in the sense of people weren't dying. I'm saying, like, we know this is going to cause catastrophic economic collapse. We know that. Mm-hmm. What we don't know is what's happening with coronavirus.
Right.
So if we know this is going to cause a catastrophic economic collapse, let's do the things that don't, cause catastrophic economic collapse.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe this, what we're describing isn't the case in New York City. Fine. It's really easy to say to New York City, your 5 boroughs, by the way, of which all but one is on an island, right? Staten Island, Manhattan Island, Brooklyn and Queens are on Long Island. The rest, the Bronx is not on an island, I realize, but it's on a peninsula that's surrounded by, the Long Island Bay, or the Long Island Sound, and the Hudson River. I'd say it's pretty easy to just say to folks, no getting off the exit ramps on 95. Right? Like, no getting off the exit ramps on 87 or the Taconic or even 80 coming in from Jersey. Like,
let the rest of the country get to work. Let us produce what we need to help New York in that area.
Right. And one of the trade-offs
right now our hands are tied. We can't do anything for anybody. Let the rest of us get back. It's America. Look at 9/11, how we pulled together. If New York needs us, or if LA has a serious earthquake, America pulls together and helps out where needed.
Yeah. And let us
work.
This is part of the trade-off that you have here, because if you let Arizona go back to work, mm-hmm. then you allow them to have the capital and the productive capacity to not only possibly bring, because they're talking about it being like 18 months to bring a vaccine to market. Well, maybe you could speed that up if you had more investment into those sort of things by which would happen if you brought people back to work, and then they have the money to invest in those sort of things.
And we're also looking, what are we up to? About 20% unemployment right now? Somewhere 15
it's actually, to 20? I think I haven't looked it up in a while, but I'm pretty sure we've
passed there. So if you're unemployed, you're not contributing to charity at all.
Right.
If we're back at 3% unemployment, I've got an extra $50 this week that I'm going to send somewhere if New York needs it.
Yeah.
And if a million of me contribute $50 this week, there's 50 million bucks.
No, a million of you contribute $50. That's a half a billion. So, I mean, the point is true. A charity case is a charity case.
If a million people contribute 50 bucks.
Sorry, you're right. Sorry. I don't know why
I ain't giving $500 this week. Now you let me go back to work and you might get $50 from me every other week.
Right. Right. But the point is charity cases are just that, charity cases.
Yeah.
And people will give to charity. The
But
problem is if they don't have anything to
job.
give to charity, they won't.
Exactly,
and even if we're
yeah.
not talking about giving to charity, I mean, if you let people.
No, I just mean in the general sense of if we're working, we'll pull together and help New York. If they're,
we will. Yeah,
it's historically happened. I can't think of a time when anybody's ever said, screw you. As much as Arizonans might have a strong distaste for Californians and New Yorkers, we still sent a ton of fire trucks there after 9/11.
Yeah, I mean, and that's true. Fire trucks came in from all the way from Danbury, Connecticut. And I mean, the outpouring of Cookeville, Tennessee, when we had our tornadoes here, which were much more devastating than what you saw in Nashville and what the news is actually reporting on. The truth is the true devastation was happening here in Putnam County, right? Well, the moment the police allowed volunteers to go in and help out, because you want to have the emergency crews get in there and take care of things first, right? But I think it was like 3 or 4 days later, they finally let volunteers get out. The city organized a meeting of volunteers, right? And this is before the shutdown, so people were still at work, right? At Hobby Lobby, at the parking lot of Hobby Lobby, and it was thousands of vehicles showed up. I'm about 3 or 4 blocks from Hobby Lobby. I had a hard time pulling out of my driveway that morning. I had to go get parts for my car, so I couldn't honestly help out with the volunteer efforts here in Cookeville. But if that's anything, and if that's in any way indicative of the American spirit, you're 100% right. Send us back to work, and then we can give, and then the rest of us can help out New York.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But we can't if we don't have jobs.
We can't do that if we're not working and if we're not being productive. So send us back to work, please. Let us go back to work. I don't want government's money. I want my own money.
All right. So that's what we do now. So what about after the storm's weathered?
You're right. So there is a serious conversation. We are going to weather this storm. This is America, greatest country in the face of the earth. We're going to weather this storm. And after the storm is weathered, then we've got a serious question to say about things like, what should we do with the FDA? What should we do with the economy generally? What should we do with taxation? My opinion is we should, in this year, strip down the government to just its bare bones, right? Mm-hmm. That way we can afford to have incredibly low tax levels, which then, creates significantly more productivity. You limit significantly the restrictions from the FDA so these drugs can come to market a lot sooner. By the way, what we should do now, even too, with the vaccine being developed. And then we got a serious question to ask about what we're going to do with China. And that brings up what Japan has already decided they're going to do with China, which is, if I can bring up that article real quick, Japan to pay firms to leave China, relocate production elsewhere as part of coronavirus stimulus. So basically,
now, I didn't get to read this article. I pay them elsewhere. Are they talking anywhere, or is this elsewhere in Japan?
So I'm actually going to read just the first. This is kind of a long article. Okay. So I'm going to read just I think it's the first 2 paragraphs is really all I wanted to read. So let me bring the body of the article up for everybody. By the way, the reason that, if you go to our website, I've had to clean the hell out of these articles to present them for everybody. If you go to our website, I don't have to do that. You don't see these super narrow reads with all kinds of ads in the margins or tons of wasted space or ads in the middle of the article.
Go straight to the libertyblock.com.
Yeah, and you'll see our articles are much cleaner than that, and that's why you're able to read the articles that we have today from the Liberty Block at home today, right now, easier than the article you're seeing on screen right now, and that's because our layout is so much better than everyone else. Excuse me while we toot our own horn. But so the first 2 paragraphs, Japan has earmarked the equivalent of $2.2 billion of its record economic stimulus package to help its manufacturers shift production out of China as the coronavirus disrupts supply chains between major trading partners. The extra budget, compiled to try to offset the devastating effects of the pandemic, includes 220 billion yen, which is roughly 2 billion of that 2.2 billion, for companies shifting production back to Japan, and 23.5 billion yen for those seeking to move production to other countries, according to details of the plan posted online. So, as a libertarian, I hate tariffs. And I hate embargoes because, and I think this is something that a point of contention that you and I have with Trump, which is that I don't think he honestly understands how tariffs and embargoes work.
Right.
If you have a situation where you're saying they took our jobs, right? Imposing tariffs to bring those jobs back to the United States doesn't help anyone, because what you wind up doing is just significantly increasing the cost of those products to the consumer, which in the long run hurts our wallets. And it may help the handful of people that are hired here. But the other thing too you have to consider is that, like, even if that production comes back to the United States, it doesn't necessarily mean those jobs are coming back to the United States, because maybe the reason there's employment in China is because you can pay those people next to nothing. But if you come back to the United States, you got to pay robots. So it makes more sense to pay robots because people are so much more expensive to employ in the U.S. So it may not even help in that front. So understand that as a libertarian, I understand that there is a role for tariffs and embargoes, and that is basically to leverage a foreign country or another country to institute policy that is, to institute certain policy. And in this case, I don't know if I'm going to call for it, but if Trump says, you know what, screw it. Once we've weathered this storm, we're done with China, full embargo, full stop. No more travel to or from, no more business, end of story. I'm okay with that. And I think if you're going to do that sort of thing, the way to do that is not to pay companies, not to pick basically, to pick winners and losers by doing what Japan's doing. I think the way to do it is to just tell people, no, we're done. No more trade. And that's something that's pretty easy to enforce because you have to bring these in on ships to the United States. Right, like it makes no sense to smuggle in, half a dozen socks or like one pair of Nikes at a time. You bring them in on ships. That's what you were talking about with the competitive advantage of bringing them in on ships. Once that's gone, it's all that market is lost. And I know it's going to hurt my wallet, but screw it. I'm done with that country. I don't know how you feel about this. I'm hesitant.
Once early on we were talking that part of where we started asking these questions was this is either the deadliest thing ever, in which case, let's take these measures. But the numbers we were seeing out of China did not suggest it was the deadliest thing ever. They had they never broke 3,300. I don't think. They may have now because they had a little mini outbreak again. But how in 1.3 billion people do you have under 4,000 deaths? So they're either lying to us then.
They're probably lying.
We assume it's China, so it's synonymous with lying. And not anything against the Chinese people. This is the Chinese Communist Party that lies to us.
Yeah. And, this is one of the rare cases where I'm okay with sending Nikki Haley back to the UN to say, you know what, guys? No, you guys need to do the same thing. Embargo on China. And the thing is, like, with an embargo, you have to give, like your conditions for repeal of the embargo. So we're going to embargo you until, and my conditions would be until, number one, full on democracy in China, full on democracy. Number two, a complete dismantling of the one party system. And when we say actual democracy, we don't want to see you just have a democratic election. We want to see you have a democratic election, and then for like 2 or 3 years, like actually see some sort of rule of the people. It doesn't have to be exactly our Republican government, even if it's something like Sweden. Go ahead. I would love to see them, say, all right, well, here's the United States Constitution, copy, paste, done. Yeah. Right? Like, I would love to see them do that. I want to see the third condition, of course, I want to see an actual constitution. It doesn't have to be ours, but an
No.
actual piece of paper that's going to tell you what the government can and can't do. And
how the people have control in their own government, not the party. Because there's a lot of people, and it's always been that way in the communist countries. People think that the entire population are a bunch of goose-stepping communists. They're not. There's a lot of people that never join the party. That means they'll never rise in the ranks for anything, because you have to be in the party to rise. But there's people that just, they want to farm their rice through Vietnam. There's plenty of guys that just wanted to have their little farm.
Yeah. And, if the world gets together, and the other thing is, like, when you go to the UN, when you send Nikki Haley back to the UN to tell the UN, listen, you guys need to do this embargo too, right? Like, we have these conditions, like, it's not a forever embargo like we have on Cuba, which is ridiculous. And I think it's ridiculous that we have the embargo that we have on Cuba, because there should be conditions for removal of that embargo, and right now there aren't. It's, now we're done with you, and we're not going to ever go back, which is, to me, is ridiculous. Like, I'm happy to do trade with China if they do the following, but until then, we're done. And you go to the UN and you say, listen, our headquarters are on our private property here in the United States, in New York City, in this lovely, like 30-story building, on the water. Either everybody institutes these embargoes and kicks China out of the WHO, or y'all can get out and we're done with the UN too. Because I think, what was it? We provide, 60% of their funding? You get nothing. Yeah. So if that's the route we go, then that's what we do. And then you basically choke the Communist Party out of China. And to be honest, and I don't know how much time you want to spend on this, but if you ever want to see World War III, that's how it's going to happen. Because, Hong Kong, the people of Hong Kong, the people of Macau, the people of Taiwan are not going to tolerate that for long. Right? No. They're not going to tolerate being starved by their own Communist Party, because no one's doing business with them.
Well, even before Corona broke out, you look at what the Hong Kong elections were.
Yeah.
They're still defiant. They sent anti-communist people in there.
Yeah, and the sad story
started to crack down, and then all of a sudden Corona. So
yeah. And the sad part of that story is, if we go through all of this, and the CCP basically just says to Hong Kong, screw you guys, we're rolling in the tanks, then I think what you're going to wind up seeing is Hong Kong, fighting back the tanks with utter futility, and then basically coming to the Western world and begging us for their help. And then in that case, I know I'll be like 40 by then, but like in that case, I'm signing up for the military, and I think we should join. Again, I'm not a warmonger. I'm a libertarian that says
my kid is going in 2 months.
Yep.
So
I would volunteer.
Scary to me as anybody.
Yeah, and if that were to come to fruition and I couldn't join the military because of my age, I would go to the local gun store and, for the first time in my life, buy whatever I could possibly afford. Get a will put together for my family, get some bills paid, and get on a boat, and find my way to Hong Kong, because, I'm done with the CCP. I'm done with them. If they're going to constantly lie about all this, then we're done.
Right.
This is the last straw.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And
speaking of guns, going to the gun store,
guns,
do you want to move into what the Virginia governor has just done?
Yeah, let's do that. So everybody,
in the dark of the night.
Oh my God, yeah. So everybody remembers the rally that happened in Richmond in January, and where 50,000 or more brave souls took their firearms to the Capitol in Richmond and braved the winter of Richmond with no gun deaths. By the way, 50,000 guns, no gun deaths. Actually, 50,000 people bearing arms, so it was probably a lot more than even that.
One arrest, I think, right?
Yep. So this is news that we actually broke on our website late Friday night. Breaking: Virginia governor signs 5 gun control bills. So I'm going to actually just skip. So this is the entire article that you're seeing right now from our website. And you see how it's in this nice, clean, presentable format, and I can do the whole article, and you guys can actually read that from home, and the text isn't tiny. Yeah.
Without having all clickbait.
Yeah, and this is unedited too. This is me just taking the article and pumping it onto the screen that you're seeing right now. On Friday, April 10th, Governor Northam, who's Ralph Northam of Virginia, announced that he had signed 5 firearm bills into law, delivering on major promises to the Democrats of the increasingly progressive state. After a tremendous pro-gun rally in January, drew as many as 50,000 gun owners to the Capitol in protest of the proposed laws. Many politicals believed that the bills would go nowhere. Northam proved them wrong. Among the 5 bills signed into law were, I'm not going to read the bill numbers, but a law limiting citizens to 1 pistol purchase per month, a red flag law, which authorizes local police to confiscate firearms from individuals considered to be high risk before a conviction, a requirement for background checks, including for private sales, with the police and government agents accepted. Establishment of a legal requirement for gun owners to immediately report lost or stolen firearms. Increases and House Bill 1083, which increases the punishment for leaving a firearm where a child could access it to include a prison sentence of 1 year and or a fine of $2,500. Again, I'll leave the rest of this article up so you guys can read it, but that's basically the meat of the article from Ralph Northam, the baby-loving governor who apparently doesn't want to listen to the people who are in his state.
He likes blackface too.
He likes what?
He likes blackface also.
Our blackface loving.
He likes mocking African Americans.
Yep, and who loves babies after they've been born. Yeah, and who is totally in support of the people who are in his state and who are voting in his state and are going to be voting on him next time around. I don't know when the next time around is. I think it's 2022. So keeping this in mind,
he came after your guns and he just got them.
Yep. Every single one of these to me seems like a tremendous overreach. The only thing I could possibly see as having some basis in reasonability. Now I haven't actually read the bills, so I can't really.
Neither have I.
This just broke. So I haven't had time to read these bills, so I can't really comment too much on them. But if the 4th bill, which is the one that establishes a legal requirement for gun owners to immediately report lost or stolen firearms, if immediately were to include a grace period, I guess I would get it. I guess I would get where they were coming from that. Because none of these bills are going to do anything to prevent gun deaths, gun homicides, or homicides in general. None of these are going to do anything.
It gives them a reason to arrest you and keep you from ever being able to have a gun again.
Yeah, and I get it. If you're going to be recklessly negligent with how you handle your firearms, then you should be exposed to things like negligent homicide. So, for example, the uncle of the Columbine kids who said, "Here are my guns, and I leave everything unlocked, and I know that you have all these mental problems. You're having all these problems at school, and I've read all of your notes, and I'm going to leave my house unlocked. Have at it." Yeah, that guy should be behind bars.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe not today, 20-something years later. But I think you would know this better than me. What's negligent homicide? That's what Class C felony, Class D felony.
Oh, I don't know how it falls. It would probably depend on the state, how each state ranks it. But yeah, it's still going to be a felony.
Yeah,
but there was no intent on your part, but you behaved recklessly and.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about. Not just somewhat carelessly. I mean, recklessly negligent.
Right.
Right. The same.
Which in this case, the whole idea of you must immediately report. I can't remember the last time I opened my gun safe. Something could be missing from in there right now. As I think this goes to the liberal mindset that we sit here and we clean our guns every night while we watch old World War II movies or something. We don't. They sit in the gun safe until either dove season opens up again or buck season opens, or we're going out to shoot some steep.
Buck season, folks. I know his audio.
Pull them out every night and oil them. I literally, there could be missing guns right now, but because I'm not in there every day. So would this penalize me if there is a missing gun?
Right, and that's why I'm opposed to the bill, but I it's the only one where I could actually see some sort of semblance of where they were coming from, right?
Conceptually, it makes sense, but practicality,
but I'm
pretty sure of it is it doesn't.
I'm pretty sure negligent homicide already encompasses these sort of situations that I'm talking about, where it's kind of like having a pool and completely not watching your kids, having your 3-year-old be at home by themselves with the door wide open and no fence around the pool while you go grocery shopping for an hour. If that's how you're treating your 3-year-old and your 3-year-old drowns in the pool, that's partly your fault, and
Right.
that parent should face some sort of punishment for that, because
Sure.
they were reckless with their kids,
Right.
with their negligence, anyways.
Right. But if I keep my guns in my safe and for some reason, somebody figures out how to get into my safe, sneaks in one day and takes it and closes the safe back up, how am I supposed to know? I don't even think I should be held for negligent. If I left it wide open, and like you said with Columbine, if I know the dude's crazy and I'm like, hey, I'm not sure if I locked my safe just now and I'm going to the store and wink, wink.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, to me, again, it's not me saying you should have your firearms in a foot locker on lock and key. No, but if you're not home, then what you should do is lock your home. Right? Like, if you're really worried about criminals breaking into your home, lock the front door.
Right.
Right?
I lock the front door. The safe is always locked. I don't tell anyone where the combination is.
Yeah, but I'm not even saying you should have to lock your safe. If you lock your front door, then somebody has to break into the front door to get into the firearms, right?
Yeah, good point. Yeah. No,
or you take them with you, right? Like, if you're worried about your personal safety rather than just somebody breaking into your home, you take them with you. Yeah, I know.
There's too many of them.
I see what I get what you're saying.
That's
right?
That's a 2-hour trip loading them up just to go down to the Circle K.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know if anybody has shared any of this to Gray Shields, but we will be sharing. I'll try to get a clip of all this, and we can share this to Gray Shields, because this.
What is Gray Shields?
It's.
I'm not familiar.
They are a group on Facebook that I think you would enjoy, and they basically talk. Their primary focus is firearms and the Second Amendment.
Okay.
So it's a cool group. There are some crazies on that group, as there are with any group, but and occasionally the crazies like to
on
speak.
Both sides.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like the idea isn't to tell people like you have to put your guns on lock and key, is what I'm saying. Is like, but I think there is an extreme of, and again, same thing with your kid. Like, if you've got an infant, right, put your gun on the counter outside of their reach. Don't put it on the floor next to the dog bowl, loaded with the safety off. Right? Like,
yeah.
There is a line to be drawn between that and, it's in my bedroom in the nightstand, and the kid isn't tall enough to reach the doorknob, and I leave the door closed.
Right.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like, but
and a lot of these safes now, we have fingerprint scanners that a lot of us use on bedside safes and stuff, where it takes our palm print on there to open it up for if there's a bump in the night.
So is that actually faster then, do you think, than spinning a dial or putting in a key?
I haven't. I haven't played with it. I've seen videos of them, and the technology is great now.
Yeah,
it's fabulous.
I mean, I envision a world one day where we have like grain of rice-sized chips in our hands that you can voluntarily put into your hands for these sort of things. I totally see that happening, right? Yeah. It's not something I would ever do, because what's going to happen, right? If you have that grain of rice in your hand, Google's going to want that information. Right.
Oh yeah, they already are.
Yeah. So I mean,
they're already doing what came out this week, that they're using our phone, our GPS data on our phone, to help track Corona contact points.
Yeah. And what's happening?
I wasn't able to pull the article, but I came across it during the week. And
they're going
to use the GPS on our phone to try to figure out where you've been and who else you could have. They'll link where I'm at to any other phones that were in my vicinity at the time, and then send alerts to them.
Dan, is your window open again? Because you're coming in awful bright.
No. Oh. It's as dark as I can get it right now.
All right. Well, it's coming in.
Let me try some.
There we go. That's a whole lot better. That's a whole lot better. Yeah. So it's not quite so blinding. But yeah, So I wish we had an article for that, but yeah, China is actually using their 5G networks to scan people's faces and attribute points to all of these people so that they can.
Their social. I forget the term for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
based on the decisions you make, whether you buy a granola bar or a Reese's peanut butter cup. Yeah, you get certain points assessed to you, and that determines whether you get a loaf of bread that week.
Yep. And welcome to communism, folks. And this is why
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of dealing with them. And this is why, if you're going to institute embargoes and tariffs, this is the one and only place to do it. To leverage China in a negotiation to get rid of this crap.
Yeah.
And if
Although we're bringing it here, the responses
we're
are going on with
we're
Corona.
bringing the
I
5G.
just saw something half an hour before we went on that they're giving $500 fines to people that aren't. Where was it?
Yeah, we don't have that article too because that article just came out too this
Yeah.
afternoon. I think it was. I forget where it is.
So
but
now I'm looking, are they going to want to keep us locked down forever because they know, hey, you
Of
step
course
out
they
your
do.
door, I can write you a $500 fine.
Of course they do. Of course the government does, and of course everyone on the left does because they're using this as an excuse to institute the communist, the socialist policies that they would have no hope of actually getting into play if it
Right.
weren't for this situation. So if you want to talk about somebody taking advantage of death, then that's where it's coming from. That's where it's coming from.
Oh, yeah.
So we actually have managed to.
Absolutely.
We have I can't believe this, but we've actually managed to get through our entire agenda in just about an hour. So-
Just barely over an hour.
Yeah,
I don't see any questions, though. Where's all our viewers? How many viewers do we have?
I got some questions here for us. I think
right.
I've got some comments, so let's see if we can find some questions.
I have
in these-
comments from some guy, but
Yeah, this Elliot fella's been chatting it up. He's posted some links. Yeah, I don't see any questions. I don't see any questions here, but yeah, he does bring up the point
it's
that
one of those guys. He's probably in his basement banging away on a keyboard, writing a manifesto right now.
yeah, well,
Oh, he speaks Spanish. I see something about no bueno.
yeah,
From
maybe he's one of those dirty illegal immigrant commies. Yeah.
There is no bingo currently going on, Mr. Axelman, because of social distancing. So your bingo comments out the window right now.
Yeah. So all right. So I don't see any other questions and answers.
No, that's about it.
Questions and
So
answers?
that's probably the show.
Wow, I can't believe we made it through that with with only minimal technical difficulties too. So, well done.
Yeah, well, the squirrel's not unplugging my antenna this week, it would appear. So
Yep. All right, folks. We will see you in the next week with all of the latest. Hopefully, we'll have some great news about a downturn in the number of daily deaths and all of our statistics for coronavirus. Hopefully, most importantly, we will have other material to talk about. We are introducing, as you guys saw last week, hopefully the viewers, tomorrow night, which is Monday night, I'll have the dumb meme of the week posted for you guys to comment on the Liberty Blocks Facebook page. That's facebook.com.
can we take a minute on that? That was an awesome surprise. I think all of Liberty Block enjoyed seeing come through. I won't say what your comments were on why we're doing, or you made a comment right at the beginning that that we are doing it regardless.
Yep.
But
It's
I
happening,
think we all
folks.
liked it.
It's happening, folks. The board has chimed in, and it seems like they like it. I was going to do it anyways. But yeah, so Wednesday night, I'll have the Dumb Meme of the Week video posted. So check out the Dumb Meme of the Week tomorrow night. That's Wednesday night on the Liberty Block's Facebook page, facebook.com/Liberty Block. We'll have the Dumb Meme of the Week posted so you guys can comment on that. And hopefully
So you're posting the meme first, and then you make your rant on Wednesday. Is that
Yeah, and
what's gonna happen?
I'll have the video posted Wednesday night. That way, it gives people time to comment on it, and maybe if you've got a great comment, it'll be in that video, so I can share it with the rest of the world. So tomorrow night we'll have the Dumb Meme of the Week posted, and then on Wednesday night I'll have the video posted of that too. So that's some things you can look forward to as we move forward. And otherwise, happy Easter, folks! Cheers!
Happy Easter.
And we'll see you next week. Good night, everybody.
All right. Have a good one.